our office and the DEI committee in our office. Our lovely speakers, you guys are just amazing for being here, giving up your very valuable time and important tasks to, impart your knowledge and inspire us. And so we can't wait to hear from you. This is going to be, really conversational. So I really encourage everyone to participate with your questions, put them in chat, keep yourself muted, please. But do keep them, put them up in chat, and we'll incorporate them as we go on. I'm afraid that if I started introducing all of you guys, it would take up the entire hour, and I am not kidding. Just the amount of accomplishments that we have in our panel speakers is immense. So I want to, as briefly as possible and succinctly as possible, introduce each of our speakers, and then I'll let you guys fill in, all the many, many accolades that you have as well when you introduce yourselves. So first up, we have Vija Williams. Hi, Vija. She is currently the Director of Growth at Ben Kinney Companies, and just, I would say, a leader and entrepreneur all around. I have been enjoying her latest endeavor, which is the Empire Builders podcast, listening to it obsessively with amazing co-hosts.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Wendy Papasan, Seychelle Van Poole, Sarah Reynolds. It's just like a group of amazing women, and in no small part, this is inspired by that. She runs her real estate company, the Vija Group, in the Seattle area. And you probably haven't been to a mega camp, Inman, or family reunion where Vija hasn't been on stage. And I think just all around accomplished, great mom, great leader. And I'll leave it at that for now. I know there's a lot that I've missed.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very nice. Thank you.
We have Farrah Wilder, who is in the newly created, brand new, exciting position of Chief DEI Officer for the California Association of Realtors, C.A.R. So she's really a leader that is at the height of leadership in our community. Prior to her joining C.A.R, which I believe was in September. So this is new and exciting and groundbreaking all around. She had her own real estate team in Oakland and is an attorney prior to that. And in between, just filled with lots of leadership, a lot of just amazing positions that she's contributed to the real estate community. And finally, we have Hilda Ramirez. She is the CEO and team leader for the KWBAE Silicon City office. And I met her recently at a regional DEI Zoom event. And I don't even think she spoke that much, but what she did, it was just like, she has done some truly amazing things. She has a truly amazing vision. She's been involved with at the board level and founded several really great organizations in this area that she provides leadership for. So I'm just absolutely thrilled to have Hilda with us as well. So what I'd like to do is I want to give each of you a chance to briefly introduce yourself, anything that I've missed, and just I'd love for you to share what your first leadership position was in real estate. So what was that, one small step that you took that started this journey that we're here on today? So Vija, do you want to go up first?
Thank you so much. I like it, that just made me sound amazing, and it's not all that amazing. These women are amazing. I mean, Farrah, congratulations. Welcome. So happy to have you there. I know I'm in Washington State, but kudos to you. You You rock. And I can't wait to see what you build there. That's awesome. Love, love, love supporting female leaders in our industry, because while, you know, sort of, and Farrah is going to know the stats better than me, but while 60% or so of our agents in the nation are female, Farrah, what are the stats on women in real estate leadership? What percentage?
You know what? I don't have the percentage offhand, but there's definitely a disparity.
It's low.
You know, it's much lower than it should be. But yes, and we talk about this all the time with Women Up and all of that, and making sure that we're putting ourselves out there and encouraging each other.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive into it, because I have a lot of thoughts on what we can do as women leaders. So the three of us on this panel, you know, we exemplify, you know, we're building women up and trying to enfranchise them to get into leadership. But, you know, in most situations, you're dealing with male leaders, which are wonderful leaders. We have a lot of amazing male leaders. So learning how to tap, you just have to, I think we should talk about that today. How do you tap on the shoulder? What does that look like? Because my first foray into corporate leadership really happened when I was 48 years old, 2 years ago. So it is not too late. You know, for any of you guys watching who have always thought you wanted to go into leadership and maybe thought your ship had sailed, like I probably did. I think, you know, I hit an age, and I never would have guessed that I would have gone from running a team to going into corporate leadership. But I tapped in my case, my CEO is a male. You know, I tapped Ben Kinney on the shoulder and I said, I think we should do this together. I think I'm the person to lead our, at the time it was 6 brokerages. We've now acquired 2 additional ones and are working on other ones. So now we have 8 that I run. I also was asked very shortly after joining that to be on the operating committee for our mortgage, title, and escrow companies. And I run my real estate team. I have a company called Amplify with 10 other women. And so I'm actively involved now in 12 entities. I'm actively involved leading 12 entities. And that all has happened in the last 2 years at age 48. I just turned 50 this year. So that's the first leadership position I've really had in real estate. And I hope that spoke to at least one of you here who maybe felt like, you know, you had to be 30 or 35 to do this. You don't. I think that we have a lot to bring to the table and a lot to offer when we have some years of experience under our belt.
Yeah, I have to say, I always sort of imagined that Ben Kinney was just begging you for this role. Like, it blows my mind.
No, I asked him. Although I will say, like, I always say it, like, I just had my 2nd anniversary and I'm like, by the way, this is your Via-versary. This is not my Ben-anniversary. This is your Via-versary. So, yeah. You know, I put him in check. We're good.
Farrah, I want to hear a little bit about your entry into real estate and entry into real estate leadership. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Shivangi. And Via, thank you so much for the kind words. It's just an honor to be here with all of these incredible women who are taking time out of their schedules to be on the call, and women and men, and Hilda as well, who is also an incredible leader. So I guess we'll start from the beginning. So, you know, my thing was, you know, first and foremost, community, first and foremost, my clients, my business, my family, and doing the absolute best that I could for that. And so it kind of progressed naturally into leadership. As you know, I think my friends who were in YPN, and I saw those mixers and I was just like, I don't have time to go to that. That looks fun, but you know, it's 4:30 and I haven't even finished everything I need to finish for the day. So, you know, they call, they text, you know, we're at YPN, and these are people who are starting to get into the association and C.A.R. leadership and things like that, and on the boards. And it looked cool, but you know, my clients had pressing needs, and sometimes I was just tired. But I went and I connected, and you know, was asked to chair a YPN committee. So this is, you know, not just a committee of the board. This is a committee within the committee on the board. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I have time to chair the education committee on YPN, you know, because I think, and I don't want to speak for all women, but I think that, you know, we want to make sure that we do everything completely right for our clients, and we really want to do a good job, whatever we're going to do. And so I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do that position justice, and also, you know, be the right person for my clients. But, you know, I was coaxed into doing it, and I don't even know if it was 6 months in, you know, they were like, why don't you do education for the whole board? And then the elections came up and they were like, you're already connected with the board. Why don't you run for the board? And so, I decided to do that. I was engaging in important discussions where I was learning things I was bringing back from my clients. So that seemed like a good thing to do. And just, it kind of progressed from there. So that was my first leadership opportunity. And, I will just say that, as far as my positions and all of that, I could list them, but the most important thing that I do want to say about being a leader is that I felt like I was both getting something that I could bring back to my community, but I'm a servant leader, and as many challenges and all of the ups and downs, it really has always been about making sure that I'm doing something that will benefit the community as a whole. And there's been some really great things that I've been able to participate in and bring this perspective to doing this, including, the pinnacle of this position that I'm absolutely thrilled to do and be in service of our diverse and wonderful community, and making sure that all of our voices are represented and all of our needs are being brought to the forefront as we think about policy and how we engage as leaders. So I'll just start with that, and I'm just thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much. And it's interesting that, with both of you, my next question was going to be, along with the sort of why that drove you, towards leadership, there's always often a who. There's someone that kind of extends the hand to make space, I've found. So, yeah, I think that's interesting to hear from each of you. Hilda, I'd love for you to introduce yourself briefly and talk about what your first step into real estate leadership was.
My privilege and honor to be here. I have to say, I am so humbled to be among the people that I look up to as my peers in this industry. So thank you very much. I answered the tap. So I came into this business through the 1031 exchange industry. So I was an affiliate. I had my own company. We did 1031 tax deferred exchange transactions. And so I knew what leadership had done for me, and through my education at the time. And I knew that leadership was a really critical step in terms of really building business and getting to know a larger community. So when I got tapped on the shoulder, I said, okay, I have to answer the call. I have to step up. And I'm a firm believer that if someone gives you an opportunity, we have to seize it, because sometimes those opportunities don't come often enough. So I was very fortunate. Someone at my real estate board reached out to me and said, we'd like you to be a part of this committee. And slowly, suddenly you're the chair of that committee, and now you're the chair of multiple committees, and then you're sitting on the board of directors, and then you're sitting on the executive board, and so on and so forth. But it all starts with that first tap. So I'm big on tapping people on the shoulder and sharing my story so that they'll be compelled to want to do the same, because I'm a firm believer that you have to step up to the challenge when it's offered. Otherwise, we can't sit on the sidelines and complain about it when it doesn't happen. But it is hard work, and it requires a tremendous amount of commitment, amount of time. Sometimes you have to sacrifice other things in order to be able to fulfill your role. But at the end of the day, when I lay my head to rest, I really feel good about my contributions to society, humanity, and knowing that I've made some small bit of impact for others. And through my trade association, my local board trade association, I then began to recognize the big voids that there were, and subgroups, and how not everyone was given those same opportunities, simply because no one was aware of these hidden talents. So that's when I set out to organize some of my own organizations that focused on specific ethnic groups, and to really focus on increasing the rate of home ownership for Hispanics. And that's pretty much what me now to this incredible opportunity here at KW. KW is again another challenge, and I am so excited about our new national initiative. It's so important, it's so relative to who we are, especially where I'm located in California, in the Bay Area. We are the hub of
I don't know if it's me or if Hilda froze a little bit.
and
I think she's just frozen.
Frozen, yeah.
Oh, I was frozen, sorry.
Just a little bit at the end.
Please continue.
Yeah, go ahead. We lost you a little bit at the end, Hilda.
Oh, okay. So again, I came to another opportunity in my life when I was approached with the opportunity here at Keller Williams to be the team leader and CEO of the organization of our two offices. And then we just split off and now have a sister company, which is a Santa Clara office. But you talk about opportunity. At the time, I was only one of two Hispanic leaders in management in greater Santa Clara County. And Santa Clara County is, if it was measured on its own, it would be one of the seventh, I think it would be the seventh largest economy in the world. And now that person and the second, my counterpart has left the role. So I'm the single Hispanic manager for a large franchise in Santa Clara County. So with that comes a tremendous amount of responsibility. But I'm happy to continue learning and thriving and learning from all of you. And thank you for your inspiration. That's why I'm here.
Thank you so much, Hilda. I mean, I think you're just such an asset to our region and all the wonderful things that you're doing. And you kind of, I think all three of you kind of touched on what I wanted to ask next, which is, you know, when you stepped up and looked kind of to the left and to the right, I was wondering, you know, who did you see and what did you think? Was it something that inspired you to be in that position, or was it a little bit intimidating? You know, what was your mental process to step into a space where when you look to the left and right, it may not have reflected who you are? And maybe it did. I mean, maybe that's where we are right now, but I'd love to hear what your kind of initial thoughts were in these positions. Does anyone want to take it first?
I'll go. So at first, I didn't give a lot of thought or consideration to being a woman of color. That was brought to my attention by my counterpart, who was the other person of color in the industry, and he was male. So he really wanted to point that out, and he constantly brought it up in conversation. For me, I really looked at it from a gender perspective. I really enjoyed and seeing that Keller Williams created lots of leadership opportunities, and they weren't gender based like in other other areas of business. So I thought I have an opportunity here. Then it, came to my attention through Woman Up and other movements, seeing the big, difference in the number of women who are brokers versus the number of females who are productive and top real estate performers. So I started to look at the data and realizing that we do have a bigger responsibility to step up into leadership. And so that really urged me once again, because coming from, the Hispanic background and always feeling that there were some challenges for us to overcome as a group, that when someone called and created that opportunity, that it was the responsible task was to take it. And I'm just very, very fortunate that I have an OP and operating principal that was willing to invest in me so that I could have this great opportunity. And I feel very, very blessed. And so now it's my responsibility to pull other people up with me.
Thank you. Via, I wanted to touch on the podcast and the Amplify organization that you brought up. Now, these are both spaces that are, for women. And do you feel that that was something that happened organically, or is that something that, you got together with some people and said, hey, we just need these particular voices amplified?
Yeah, that's a great question. Can I just go back really quick though, because is it pronounced Farrah? Is that how I pronounce it, Farrah? Okay.
Yes.
You said something that both you and Hilda said something that I just don't want to let go of a little bit. And that's that women often feel, I'm going to speak from a female perspective. It's been interesting. My journey is interesting because I'm, I think technically 15% Black. My maternal grandfather's Black. And I've never really identified this has been an interesting conversation for me personally, because all of a sudden I found myself like, am I considered a minority? Am I not? I kind of always identified as white. So this whole thing has been a little bit of a personal journey for me too. So I'm going to speak from the female perspective, but this could also be, I'm a little bit darker than most people, and so this could be for some of us in that space. And that is that women tend to feel like we have to be 100% ready and 100% qualified and ready to go if we want to take a position, and men don't. And I can flat out tell you, men, kudos to you. That is not a slam. That is a compliment. And it's awesome. And, I want to just take this moment to say, women, you do not have to be 100% ready. Your male colleagues are tapping everybody on the shoulder. They are raising their hands and they're jumping in. And as women, we need to do that more. So I think we need to take a cue from the guys on that one. And instead of, being victim-y about it, we need to just jump in and say, hey, I'm learning based, I'm coachable. I know I'm really talented. I know I have it in me, and we need to go for it. Because your first question that you just asked was, how do we feel when we looked left and we looked right and we got into leadership? And I had never even led a market center. I had a team. It was a highly successful team. Less than 2% of women-owned businesses, you guys, less than 2% do over $1 million in revenue a year. So if you are a real estate agent, you own a team, you have a sole proprietorship, and you're watching the Zoom, and your GCI, your gross commission income is over $1 million, congratulations. You are in the top 2%, and you need to pat yourself on the back. Like, you're amazing. That's really, really cool. So I did go from that. That was cool. I went from that to all of a sudden woke up one day and I was leading 1,200 agents in 6 offices. I really wasn't ready. I flat out was not. I'm not even going to pretend. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. And I was concerned about it, but never, Hilda, just like you said, never did it occur to me that I wouldn't do this. It just didn't. The expectations, bring it on. The bigger the challenge, bring it on, And so probably you have to be willing a little bit to jump off that cliff and build your parachute on the way down, in some of these situations. And I just want to encourage you guys, like, it's probably the biggest thing I see as women. And if I could even go down that rabbit hole a little more, then I'll answer a question. If I could go down that rabbit hole a little more, I think that what men can do here as leaders for women is you can understand that that's the mindset of every woman in your organization, and you can help sponsor them along and tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I think you've got a potential for leadership. And they're going to go, no, I don't know. As a male leader, I encourage you guys to get into dialogue and start giving benchmarks and milestones and kind of give a path to leadership and more responsibility and more income to the females in your organization who you think are really talented. Women leaders probably do it naturally. I probably don't have to talk to the women here about that. We're doing it anyway for our fellow, but I think for male leaders, like, it's almost more important there's men on this today than there are women, because, I just want you to understand that's probably what's going through many of the women's heads. They feel like they're not ready. They feel like they're not ready to raise their hand, so they may not be. And so what you can do is really look out for talent and be the person that sponsors them up. Right. So anyway, sorry. The real question you asked me, what was the question you asked me? Because I was really focused on that. Sorry. Shivangi, what was the question?
How you felt when you looked around. So I think It was just, when you looked
That's how I
around, how
felt.
you felt, whether you felt prepared. So I think.
Oh, amplify. You're asking about amplify and empire building.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story about empire building, and it's a humbling story, and it doesn't make me look good. And I don't know that it makes any of our coworkers look good, but boy, was it a convicting story. And the story is that Keller Williams network wanted to do a podcast, basically for women. And they, through a series of events, it became Wendy, Sarah, Seychelle, and I. So marketing was meeting with Gary Keller. We were all pretty involved in the inception of it and what we wanted it to look like. And the day came where Annie Switt, our marketing director, was meeting with Gary and Jay and the group, and they were going to come up with the name and the vision. They were going to make decisions about the podcast. So this must have been, I don't know, like January. And so we brainstormed all these names, all the obvious names you can think of: women in real estate, women, women doing this, women doing this. So they got into the meeting, and Annie Switt, rock star that she is, she looked at Gary and she said, "I think they need to be empire building. That's a huge asset of yours. That's a course that you've taught. And I don't think the word women needs to be in this at all. I think that's probably not what needs to be in this. I think these are 4 amazing empire builders, and I think it needs to be empire." She advocated for us, and Gary goes, "That's fantastic." We cried. We were like, "You're giving us empire building. Like, this isn't about women. This is just about, we're 4 kick-ass empire builders," right? Gary Keller's amazing. The fact that him and we had that sponsor we didn't even know about. We had that going on behind the scenes. That's what we have to do for each other. That's what it looks like, right behind the curtain. When, our CEO says, "Absolutely, I'm giving him that asset title." Like, absolutely, they get to be empire building, these 4 women. And so it really put us in our place. And we kind of looked at each other. We're like, how small were we thinking that every title we had the word women in it? Like, what's wrong with us, right? Gary saw it. Annie saw it. And I can't remember, Gary might have even recommended it first. I'll find out for you, because I probably is part of the story, but either Annie or Gary, point is, Annie really advocated for us in that room. And so empire builders, it's actually empire building. It started out, definitely like it was going to be the women podcast. Like, let's be honest, right? There's a lot of bro podcasts out there. There's like the Jeff Wood one thing, there's the Gary and Jay one. And I think it turned into, no, actually, this is an empire building podcast. And it happens to be 4 women hosts, right? We do topics that, that are more female forward, obviously, because we are we're all wives. We all happen to be wives and moms as well. And I think there's more to this story. Do you guys know 800,000 women have been removed from the workforce since COVID, and only 200,000 men have been?
Wow.
Right. We just have different set of demands. I'm not, it's just a fact, right? Amplify, on the other hand, was extremely, extremely intentional. So Amplify, for those of you who don't know, was formed because 11 of us have formed intimate friendships and relationships that most of us have only had in our college years, in our teenage and college years. And as older women, we don't always have those intimate female relationships where a ton of stuff about each other, you support each other, you celebrate the aggressiveness, you celebrate the a little bit non-traditional roles that a lot of us have. And, it changed all of our lives. And we got to a point, all of us, I think, are leaders at heart. And it got to the point where we were like, we need to teach other women how to have a tribe. We need to teach them how to purposely get a tribe, because that amplify that group of, it's a long story, it's a funny story, but we call ourselves the 5 dolls, and there's 11 of us, and it's a dumb name, but that it literally, our lives have changed from that group. And so Amplify, we did an event last year for the first time, sold it out in a month. I mean, it was incredible. It was, for anyone who was there, it was how to get your tribe, and it was a lot of this, like what we're doing on this panel. And we had to cancel, by the way, 95% of attendees signed up for the next one on site, on the spot. And then we had to cancel it, because of COVID. So it's going to be back. So if any of you are interested, it's amplifyevent.com. And I say that I'm not trying to shamelessly self-promote, but I am telling you getting a tribe and getting like-minded women that celebrate having a big life, you know, and understand that you can have a big business and be an awesome mom and an awesome wife. Like, you don't have to give that up, which is a big fallacy women have. Amplify event is for you if that speaks to you in any way. And we're doing a whole series of virtual events with a lot of breakouts, and, you know, because it was canceled, it's really a year of fun with us. So that's how those two things got started. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk so much.
No, I'm so glad that that you had a chance to plug Amplify, because I kind of watched it from afar last year. The timing just wasn't right.
You are required to go, Shivangi. There's no options for you. Like, I'm making you go.
I'm all about it. So Farrah, I wanted to get your perspective on this, because in your position, it is about, you know, the position itself, but there's a focus on the diversity and the equity and inclusion. So when you step up to that role, you know, I assume that when you look to the left and you look to the right, it was done intentionally, and you came to it with purpose. So I want to hear a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Sure. And there's a lot of history there. And I mean, my co-panelists have touched on intersectionality too. So some of that is in there, you know, being, I'm not a mom, but being a mom and a woman, or being a woman of color, you know, there's all of these different layers to the experience and I'm hearing that we were called to be leaders, all of us, including myself initially, to not because, you know, we wanted to, you know, kind of focus on being a woman or focus on being a person of color or a mom, because we wanted to focus on being, you know, the best business person or to support our industry as a whole. But what sometimes happens, at least for me, is that you realize your difference, you know, as you kind of step in there in an industry that you're passionate about, or in a role that anyone might feel called to as a professional who cares about their profession and their industry. And so initially, you know, I was kind of surrounded by people I knew, or colleagues in my local community, Oakland being pretty diverse. And that felt, you know, I wasn't thinking as much about being a woman or a person of color, maybe to some extent sometimes, you know, there are dynamics in Oakland, and, you know, some of us, you know, in the Bay Area, you know, we kind of understand, you know, that there are communities of color that are shifting and changing, and that's, you know, important. But it wasn't, you know, the only thing, and wasn't the primary thing necessarily at first. I got to C.A.R. so eventually, and it happened pretty fast. I was also appointed to be C.A.R. director by my local association, and so that was exciting. I was going to be on the taxation committee, which sounded really nerdy. I'm kind of nerdy. I could get really involved in some things that, you know, could make a difference, but, you know, would also stretch me, and so that felt really good. I got to C.A.R. and there was like one of me, at least as far as I could tell, like, you know, and it's a big group, right? Like the entire board is over 850 people, and it's not at all diverse, you know, in the ways that it should be, you know, like there's,
It was that big. That's amazing.
it's huge. So yeah, and then they get us all, you know, at certain points in the week, because it's 3 weeks of business meetings, and they get you all in one room a couple times each week, and you look around, and then the smaller rooms, the committee meetings, are like maybe 100 to 200 people. Some of the more well-attended ones, you know, will be maybe you'll have people who are on the committee and some people who are also there out of interest, but that's like 100 to 200 people. And I looked around, and even before I was officially on, I was kind of starting to go out of interest and knowing it might happen. And I was just like, whoa, I'm very different here. You know, I kind of started to feel it because it's huge. If it was a smaller group, it might not have been as intimidating. Plus, you know, you've had people who are friends with each other. They've been doing it for so long, you know, together. And they also are, you know, very much, everybody there has strong opinions, but, you know, folks have very strong feelings about how things should be, you know, so coming in as a very different person, was a lot, you know, it was a lot at first, and I had to really think about it. But what helped was, and we all talked about allies and creating your community was I was sitting alone outside of a meeting room that I was going to go into, and I don't know if you guys know Miss Evelyn Arnold, but Evelyn Arnold is legendary in C.A.R. She is she's one of the Black C.A.R. directors who's been involved for, you know, longer than most. I mean, she's probably started in the 70s or 80s. She became a realtor maybe in the 70s or the 60s. When she became a realtor, I don't think she could join her local association, nor, and when she went to buy her first home, they could legally tell her that she could not live in certain communities. And so she has all of this history. She was one of the first people who approached me who I didn't know from my association and introduced herself, her and Mel Wilson, who's also a longstanding Black C.A.R. director. And they asked me who I was and where I was from. And they took an interest in me. And that was probably in 2012 or so. And I will never forget that, because seeing them in the audience, and then, you know, some of the other Black C.A.R. directors and women and people of color who introduced themselves made all the difference for me. And so I did have a strong sense of what I was there to do and what I was there for, but I can't lie and say it wasn't an intimidating room, especially given the force with which people expressed their interest. Their opinions there. And so I kind of get the Holy Ghost, you know, about certain things. You know, I just get compelled to go up to the mic. And so I would say that, you know, and this is something that sometimes takes you seeing yourself in the audience, or you seeing supporters in the audience, because I also looked in the audience and saw not as friendly faces. And I'm going to be real about that. You know, sometimes, you know, as a woman, as a person of color, as a woman of color, as a queer person, you know, people will, you know, sometimes make assumptions looking at you, and, you know, they might even think this person is going to say something I disagree with. So, you know, you can look in the audience and you got a mix of things going on. But I participated, you know, I did. I pushed through any intimidation or any kind of vibes out there. I didn't even think about the vibes out there. I was an attorney at some point. I know sometimes you have two, three, four sides to an issue sometimes, and they're all important. So I did speak, and, you know, if I wasn't always on committees, so that, you know, I don't know if you guys have heard, if you don't have a seat at the table, you can bring a folding chair. Every realtor is able to go to any open meeting at C.A.R. and you might have a perspective that's important for the group to consider. And I took that very seriously, but I was often on the committee. So I just took my role. I was there. I was entitled to be there as anyone else, even if I wasn't officially on the committee, which I often was. And I did that. And it was to the group's credit, and it's getting bigger and bigger, to that folks of color, or even, you know, allies who weren't people of color, men, knew that this is a hard room sometimes, and it's really important to reach out and support. So we can do this for each other. And I found it very important. And I also try to do that for folks. So I'm sure there were other things that I wanted to say, but, you know, that was my experience with that. And, you know, I just stayed and I brought all of those feelings, because there were also things, I know what it was. And I hate to talk long, but I think this is really important. It's okay not to do everything. It's okay, you know, to kind of reassess. And, you know, there's this whole strong woman, strong Black woman trope in particular. I grew up with it. You know, we have to be careful about burnout. We can be perfectionists. We often have many things on our plate, and just the mental energy of trying to figure out how to be effective in a space that may not naturally always, you know, feel like you should be there, is a lot. So I have not, I've taken a lot of things offered to me. I think that it's important for us to even take initiative and try to be in those spaces, because we offer really important things. But there have been times when I'm thinking this is taking more from me than I'm getting out of it. And so I think that's an important concept for us to remember. But I also think it's important to put yourself out there and to go for things, and to, you know, really understand that you are providing a really important diversity, different perspective. And, that was really what kind of compelled me to stick around. And at some point, people will appreciate that you are taking initiative, that you are coming from a place of heart about your community and offering perspectives that are not just about getting into further leadership, but are really there to be constructive to the group. And it served me well. And so I then, with all of these experiences, the ups and the downs, how hard it was, I wanted to make sure that it was going to be easier for folks, for people of color, for women, for queer people, disabled people, all of the different groups that come into these spaces and find it hard, and that need to be in there, and that need to be represented fully, not just one, but many, that need allies that look like them and that also don't look like them, and that the group needs to be more educated about how to accommodate and be truly inclusive, and also to really understand the issues. So that it feels so good to actually be able to do this, because I learned so much in that process, and also coming from a community that often doesn't have its needs addressed in this group, it feels like amazing to have a receptive organization to diversity, and also all of the fair housing things that come up.
Okay, Farrah, I have to say I'm stealing the Holy Ghost thing. That is, that just spoke deep to my soul.
You know how it is. Sometimes I think I'm going to sit in the back, but
Like,
no, I have to talk.
I'm not going to say anything this meeting. I'm not going to do it. And then you're just like,
I find myself at the mic. How did I get here? Yes, I'm new, but I'm talking.
It is the Holy Ghost. I love that. And so, one of my questions was going to be, what are you guys doing to make this space for the next leader? And I think you guys have all already hit on that, which is so amazing, because it's so fundamental to your style of leadership. And I just think it comes organically. And one thing, Farrah, listening to you that came to mind was, this quote that I kind of hold tightly. It's kind of a cheesy Instagram quote, but it resonates right now. And it's, just because you carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy. So I think that leaders, women leaders, just anyone that, that's taking on this extra mantle of that intersectionality, of, all these different expectations that they bring to themselves very often, and from others, there's so much to navigate. And I just am so in awe of all of you for taking on more and more, and being so thoughtful and so purposeful when you take on your leadership. So since we've kind of talked about that, two things. One is that if you guys have any questions, please put them in now, because we're going to be wrapping up. So this is my last question. And then I'd love to hear, what people have thought, what people want me to follow up on. So you can go ahead and put that in chat. So the last question that I want to ask is, so, you guys have all talked about your what you're doing on a personal level to, bring up leaders and be mentors and create space. What are you doing on a professional level? Because you do have a platform, you do have, the power. So how are you using that? Whether it's for real estate, it doesn't have to be, just about bringing up women, but what do you see in your leadership for yourself? And I know that Vija is on a time crunch, so I'm going to ask Vija if she wouldn't mind going first.
So the question is, what am I doing professionally to bring up women leaders, or is that the question?
You're a leader. You have kind of forged this platform for yourself. What do you see as your primary directive in leadership? And it doesn't have to be about like women. It doesn't have to be, but what's your vision is kind of what I want to ask.
Well, yeah, that's a thought-provoking question. I'll have to think about that later. I'll probably come up with a better answer. What comes to mind right now is, leadership to me is leading someone down a path they've never gone before to a destination that they want to arrive at. So that's how I view myself, as a trail guide, really, is, I'll give you an example. I was talking to BK. My husband's name is Ben, and so Ben Kinney is BK in my world. I was talking to BK, my CEO, this morning on the phone, and I was telling him something that one of my team leaders said to me yesterday. And I said, Ben, I find myself constantly, thinking about how, as a leader, I can, what the team leader had said is that the tribe we have come up with, we have 8 team leaders, because we have 8 market centers. We actually have 9. We have an ATL. And he said, I've never in my career worked for such an amazing team that you've put together. We are an amazing team. We have morning calls every morning. We are connected. There's all sorts of side chats. There's people doing things. I work really hard to matchmake people in the squad. Hey, so-and-so's struggling with this. I think you guys should get together and talk. I mean, I work hard at tribing them up, right? And he was talking about how in his individual market center, he was like, it's totally different. Like, I have this 2 companies I work for, this amazing tribe, and I'm trying to do that in my own market center. And I was telling Ben this morning, I go, how can I lead leaders to be good leaders, right? Like, that's the next step. Just like, Ben's really, I think, mentored me into being a good leader. Ben didn't tell me what to do. He taught me how to be a good leader. It's one thing to lead the group. I've done that. We have an amazing team. Now, how do I teach them to have amazing teams, right? And that's where I am in my leadership journey, is truly leading leaders to be leaders. And it's a new skill for me, which is exciting and fun. I am reading a ton right now, listening to a million podcasts, reading articles, reading books, listening to Audible on my walk. I'm in it right now. How can we as leaders lead leaders? But as part of that, I think we model a lot of behavior, and, I'm very mindful now of the impact I have on my team. I think that I entered this not understanding the full amount of influence I had. And so just stepping into that power and just saying, hey, I just have to own this. What I do will be watched, instead of trying to be all humble. I have this tendency to go, no, I'm not. No one's watching me. Like, I'm not that important. And the fact is, they are, and we have to model good behavior for them to, look towards, right? So those are all the things I'm focused on in my leadership journey. I don't know if that helps, but there you go.
No, that's incredible. So one last, 2 words. Who are you drawing your inspiration from? Is there anyone that just kind of sticks out at the moment?
C.A.R. Reynolds right now. C.A.R. Reynolds is incredible. She's a Keller Williams team owner, number 1 in the company. She toggles between 1 and 2. She's one of my close friends at this point, and you all need to study what C.A.R. Reynolds is doing. She's out of the DC, Virginia area, and she's just become a close friend and someone whose opinion has just my respect for her has gotten so high that I find myself seeking her counsel a lot. And she's almost 15 years younger than me. Doesn't matter, right?
Does not matter.
But if you're looking for you're looking for someone famous, Naval Ravikant, I'm attached to like every word he's saying right now, reading a lot of his stuff, super into him lately. I think he's just a thought leader. I'm really into, I don't know if that's leadership, but I'm super into Naval lately as well. So.
Thank you, Vija. I know you have to jump off.
Yeah, I do have to jump, and I'm sorry. Like, I'm dying to hear. I'm so sorry that I'm missing the rest, because I took some notes earlier. So thank you for having me, and let's do it again. That was fun.
Absolutely. I'll see you soon. Bye. So we have a couple more questions. I want to ask the same question about your vision of leadership. Farrah, if I can ask you, what you're in this newly created position. You're a C-level officer in California Association of Realtors. I imagine that's probably the most realtors of any state, just by size. What's your vision of leadership? What is that driving laser focus that you have?
So the awesome thing about having so many realtors, and actually, I was surprised that C.A.R does so much with only not even 150 employees, but it's a kind of a small but mighty group. But group is the common theme, you know. So there is a team everywhere you go, and I think what I am trying to do, you know, how I see my role is, first of all, C.A.R is a member-driven organization. Out of the 200,000 plus realtors in the state of California, there are all kinds of competencies, experience, intelligence, backgrounds, and it's all very important. And so it's really important to cultivate that leadership, to hold space for those voices. And so the officers of C.A.R have put together a task force. We're meeting for the first time in 2 days, and so there's been a lot of work around making sure that, you know, we create a good container for this meeting to be very impactful. These are all leaders, and I see myself as part of the space holder for these really important discussions and this important work that all happens through teamwork. And so I tell folks who are passionate in our communities, who have opinions, who don't like something or who want things to be a certain way, I'm like, link up with a group. So you could go to city council or you could write a letter to a lawmaker as an individual, but it is way more, to me, it's been really powerful to kind of participate in discussions with a group and have the group come to, you know, a decision about what would be the most important thing. And then as this big, powerful, fierce group, like our C.A.R Ledge Day, or you know, when we go lobbying as the federal committee leadership, which I chair the federal committee at C.A.R as when I was a realtor, to go in, especially, you know, as a person of color. And I say that because when you talk about issues impacting communities of color, you are bringing a certain kind of gravitas because you are potentially from that community. You may know something about that, and I do think that people take that seriously. But you also are representing this big group, and this big group is saying this is important. So I would say, you know, continuing to work with this group and cultivating this competency within this group is important, and bringing together scholars, government officials, realtors, and all the important stakeholders, and making sure that the solutions we come to around fair housing, diversity, and policies and practices that are going to impact underrepresented communities include all the important voices and are really going to work well for all of the stakeholders. Because I was just a realtor and I remember what it was like to try to work with a down payment assistance program that was not created with realtor input. So it's really important that we're all in the room, and I want to make sure that I'm identifying as many people as possible. So with that, friend me on Facebook, join the Deliberately Fair Housing group, be a part of the discussion, join Women Up, read The Likability Trap. That's our book for the week. We're going to be talking about it tomorrow. And if you haven't read it, you can join the conversation. But these groups and these discussions and participating, to me, is really important. And I can be an individual. I feel like sometimes you get things done really fast as an individual, but the power is in the group. And that's what I'm here to support.
And what I love about that, and Farrah, this came up in I think our initial conversation that we had, is it's also kind of a safe place to like dip your toe in to see if leadership is right for you. There's a lot of people, there's no pressure. And in that group setting, you might find the person that you're going to link up with that's going to reach their hand out. And that might be, you know, if it's something that you feel strongly about or passionately about, that's where you're going to intentionally find your tribe, like Vija was saying. You know, we form these strong bonds in our youth, but there's no reason that we as adults can't find those like-minded individuals that are really going to raise us up all together. So I think that, you know, it's great to have the voice heard, but it's also great to find these other people who are kind of thinking like you that are going to really turn your gears a little bit more and, you know, and challenge you and lift you up.
It's true. And leadership to me is not about titles. And also, you might find that there are people who care who don't agree, but when they learn, they might be converted. And then you really have strong allies who can also spread the message to their communities. I know we're kind of running out of time, so I don't want to talk too long about that. But I think those are important things to remember. Just come and share and be a part of the group, regardless of title. You might get a title, you might not. Just be involved.
Absolutely. Hilda, I think we're going to close out with you. If you would share, I forgot my question. Like, I'm just so like amped listening to everyone. What your vision of leadership is and where you think you're using your platform to take leadership in real estate and in your own kind of personal vision.
I've learned a lot in the journey, fortunately. I've been in this business for over 30 years. And so I was very, very fortunate to have, you know, people give me the tap on the shoulder, and then I played close attention on how to accelerate the path for others. So that they wouldn't be, you know, further delayed in the process if they were willing, able, and I knew that they were capable. So that is one great advantage that we have through organized real estate, because there are so many levels. You can start in your local brokerage. If there are opportunities there, we know we have opportunities through our Associate Leadership Council, the ALC. So tap somebody on the shoulder, reach out to the team leader, the OP, and say, you know, I think this person would be qualified. Has anybody, you know, reached out to them and asked them if they're interested in being a part of this group? I think that's one step forward. The same thing at our local trade associations. I think Farrah has a great story also, how she climbed the ladder on, you know, in her local and state leadership track with C.A.R. The same happened, you know, to me. So we need to help identify people, help them understand why they're needed. We need people who look like us. We need other females, you know, to step up into the role of leadership so that they can get larger roles in the corporate field. So I think it's really, really a great stepping stool to start either through a nonprofit or, you know, in organized real estate, and nominate people. And I have to tell you a story of our own local trade association. We had a gentleman who ran for various positions, and he always got to the executive level, but he never got to the seat of the presidency. So I said, why is this not happening? And I quickly identified it was because those individuals who were on the nominating committee didn't relate to him, and they didn't understand his journey, and they didn't understand the value that he added to the organization in ways that they had not yet experienced. So I set out to change the faces at the nominating committee so that there would be more sensitivity placed into his nomination. And after 125 years, we finally had the first Hispanic realtor as the president of our association. So, you know, sometimes it's not easy. The work has to be put in, and you have to explain to others, because it's not easy getting other Hispanics to say, okay, I need you to give up 3 days of your business to sit down and go through all these interviews so that we can get our guy on, you know, the front line. But it's what you have to do. You have to run a campaign. You have to run the playbook. You have to do everything correctly. And number one, the person who is going to be your nominee has to be qualified. So if you want something, get after it, do the homework, put in the work, put in the time, build your resume, and then, you know, organize your tribe so that they will propel you up. And it can be done. I'm living proof. Others are, you know, and I reach out and I try to do the exact same thing for others. A lot of our local papers and both locally and nationally run campaigns for women of influence. Women of Influence is a big campaign by the Business Journal. Reach across the table and nominate one of your favorite realtors for those opportunities. There are so many ways that we can propel one another, but we have to take action. It's up to us. Don't, second guess if they're going to be nominated by another person. You take that action. And let's nominate people and let's bring their names to the forefront. Let's empower them with encouragement and motivation and inspiration so that they can go on and do what they were designed to do in this life. We all have the capability. We just have to push, the door open when there's a tiny little sliver. And we've got to get better at that. We're totally capable of doing all of these wonderful things. I think people of color, women in general, we bring different perspectives to the table. We're used to multitasking. It's just part of our DNA and in our life experiences as mothers, whether they're, children or fur babies. You know what I mean? Being responsible for others is just, and I also and then supporting our elderly, right? We have to then go back and support our family members that are aging. And so it doesn't ever end. But I think it just makes us more uniquely qualified to have input when it's necessary, have fire in our bellies to get through the day, and really inspiration to do better in this life and to make more impact. So, rising to the occasion when we're called to participate, in these discussions. Again, something that I wasn't prepared for this morning when I woke up, but given the opportunity, I said, yes, how can I not? So thank you for having me.
Grateful.
Such an honor and such a pleasure. That is such a passion of mine, is to help elevate women, to their next level. And if there are women realtors on this call who have license, I want to encourage you to do that, because that is part of the Woman Up movement with C.A.R. We need to have more women brokers, and we just need to raise the bar across, in our profession. So let's go for it.
Hilda, you are amazing, and we could not be more grateful for you jumping into our panel last minute. There's so much to be said for you saying yes. We benefited from that for sure.
Because it really comes to my calling. So I have to say one thing about NORA. So NORA is the National Organization of Real Estate Professionals. It's an organization that I'm a co-founder of. And the reason we created NORA was to provide Hispanic leaders, both genders, to the table of leadership. And our goal was to bring people up through the ranks, through real estate, to serve their greater community. So we have representatives that have been realtors who came onto our board, helped us with our mission and vision of increasing the rate of homeownership among Hispanics, and then went on to serve the community as board of trustees, as city council members. We're yet to get our first mayor, but we'll keep working on that. But you know what I mean? We created as a vehicle to help people reach larger seats at tables where their voice would be magnified and really make a significant difference. Because that
I think we lost Hilda to the Wi-Fi. I want to thank everyone for being here. I know we're a little bit over our time right now. I can't thank our panelists enough. I mean, these are women that I follow, that I have, identify as personal role models and inspirations. And I can't wait to see the incredible work that they do. And I really hope that somebody's inspired to take one small step and, make yourself seen in leadership, and to inspire those around you as well. So, oh no, I think Hilda's still frozen. So thank you, everyone. Farrah, do you have any last words, since Via's off and Hilda seems to be frozen? I'm so sorry.
You know, I just am thrilled to be here. I was writing in the chat that, you know, these discussions are really important. These are the discussions that, you know, kind of inspire us. And then we go out and we do the hard things. And then we make sure that we have built our community. And so I think it's just important to do that. And I'm glad to support and be a part and be a friend and all of that. And also to be inspired by all of the work that you guys do. And I enjoyed hearing Vija and Hilda as well. I mean, they are absolutely amazing, and I'm also inspired. So, and Shivangi, you too as well, for putting this together and for everything that you do. So thank you.
No, it was my pleasure. I can't believe that I got you guys. I was like, well, what? So it's been incredible. I hope that, you know, everyone takes something away from this conversation and maybe like just furthers this conversation with friends, family, your kids, you know, take something and, you know, take a seed and grow it. So thank you all for coming. I'm so grateful for your time, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week.